My name is Paula Brantner, and I will speak tonight about what RBG means to me. There are many RBG quotes out there, but this one is particularly relevant to start. Speak your mind, even if your voice shakes. And even though this has been a very emotional week, for the next 6 minutes or so, I will speak my mind about how she has inspired me. I'll start with a story about the night we learned about her death. As you can see, I have her bobblehead behind my desk, and a little after 7 p.m. on Friday, when joining my friends for a Zoom happy hour, I turned around and knocked the bobblehead off the desk. The head fell off the spring it was on, lying on the ground. I said, "Oh no, we have to protect Ruth." Around 20 minutes later, one of my friends shared the news, and our mood became very somber as it started to sink in. We reminded people to protect her wearing their masks, but she was protecting us and all that we stood for, and we knew it. We wanted to protect her forever if we could. As a 4-time cancer survivor, when we heard the news of her most recent recurrence, it seemed like all the other times, when she would, by virtue of her indomitable will and her superhuman strength, just keep working. I first learned about Ruth Bader Ginsburg when I was in law school. In my con law classes, I learned about her work with the ACLU's Women's Rights Project. She laid the foundation for our modern understanding of sex discrimination and equality. When reading about her work, I was a little troubled. Some of her first cases were on behalf of men who had experienced sex discrimination, but she was strategic. She knew that both women and men were harmed by enforced gender roles and understood the importance of eliminating gender distinctions. She was one of 12 women graduating in her class at Columbia. But when I started law school in 1989, over half of my class were women. There are so many things we now take for granted about treating women and men the same. Credit card and credit history, leasing an apartment, buying property in your own name, making your own decisions. It is because of her. She has been a member of the court for essentially my entire legal career. I graduated in 92 and she joined the court in 93. She's been part of making the law we use as employment lawyers to fight sexual harassment, anti-gay and anti-trans discrimination, gender discrimination. She replaced Byron White, who wrote a homophobic sodomy law decision, but she was part of the Lawrence majority overturning that decision. In Windsor and Obergefell, the same-sex marriage cases, and Bostock, which made workplace discrimination illegal against LGBT employees. And when I attended Bostock's argument last year, she asked all the right questions to set up the winning argument. In many of her pictures, she looks stern, but when I first saw her in person, she looked just the opposite. Before oral arguments, the Chief Justice swears in attorneys to the Supreme Court bar. When I was sworn in before a sexual harassment argument, I noticed her smile was just beaming, especially for the women sworn in. I felt warm and welcomed there. As the second woman, Justice O'Connor welcomed her, but she was lonely as the court's only woman. After Justices Sotomayor and Kagan, they asked how many was enough. Her answer was, when there are 9. No one was too concerned when it was 9 men. When I go to conferences with panels, more like manels, I look down and remember when there are 9. She was not always part of the majority. More often, she was a powerful dissenting voice. Lilly Ledbetter lost her pay discrimination case before the court. And when I read the majority opinion, I thought they just don't get it. But Justice Ginsburg got it and let her male colleagues know. When Lilly Ledbetter lost, she never saw a cent from Goodyear, but RBG inspired her to keep going. From Alabama, Lilly came to DC to testify and build support to overturn the decision. The Lilly Ledbetter Equal Pay Act was the very first bill President Obama signed. Whenever Justice Ginsburg planned to read her dissent aloud, she would always wear her dissent collar. I wear mine in her honor. She wears it in this painting by Joan Baez, the singer and activist. Baez says that RGB's passing would energize people to strive with renewed purpose for equality and social justice. We know she did her very best to hang on. Her final statement said, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed." The uncertainty about what will happen next with her replacement has inspired and energized us. As Justice Ginsburg died, just as Rosh Hashanah was beginning, in her Jewish faith, they say, may her memory be for a blessing. It's been adapted to, may her memory be a revolution. While Justice Ginsburg lies in state right now, we know it may take a revolution to preserve what she stood for. She herself was not a revolutionary. She disappointed some by calling Colin Kaepernick's protests dumb and disrespectful, but she said, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. But even if protests and marching are not your style, or not during a pandemic anyway, there are many things you can do to support what she stood for. Do something outside yourself. Do something that makes life a little better for people less fortunate than you. In one of her most famous dissents before the court involving the Voting Rights Act, she said, throwing out the Voting Rights Act when it's working is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you are not getting wet. She understood the importance of voting. Tonight, if it were not for the pandemic, we would be in the Silver Springs Civic Center, where I have voted several times. And regardless of how you choose to honor Ruth Bader Ginsburg's legacy, it is in our court now. I'll close with Joan Baez. On November the 3rd, we can help make her dying wish come true. Action is the antidote to despair. Vote.